We're live here on the Bay Area Media Pulse. I'm Rich Lieberman. Now, you know, people have sort of commented here publicly and privately and beyond about me and KGO ABC7. Uh, I've talked about Julian Glover. I've been very critical. He is one of their anchors. I've also reported here exclusively and otherwise involving the status of Dion Lim. And somebody said, you've only hit the tip or reached the tip of the iceberg. Well, I've known about this issue, which I'm about to talk about, for many moons now. And I have resisted going public thus far because I wanted to make sure that I checked all my sources and rechecked and then again checked and talked to a whole bunch of people. Okay. So I take that very seriously, folks. I do. I just don't throw the proverbial you know what against the wall. That's not my MO, particularly for something like this. This is what I am speaking of. So I've reported about Dion Lim, and there is an issue involving Dion Lim and Julian Glover. It has created a wedge of all wedges at KGO Television, ABC7, the Disney-owned ABC O&O in the Bay Area. They're on 900 Front Street. And I'm going to give you news that is significant in my book, and it's very, very strenuous, shall we say, and involves a lot of tension and angst, but needs to be put out. So Dion Lim and Julian Glover have a conflict. The conflict stems from Glover's standpoint about Dion Lim. And what does that involve? Well, Dion Lim has been, through her social media, particularly X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, has done a lot of, shall we say, putting out videos of Asian crime or crimes against Asian, particularly older Asians that have Black suspects or Black alleged participants. Done a lot of that kind of reporting vis-a-vis her social media. And that has drawn the ire of Julian Glover, who himself is African American, and caused quite a wedge, quite a stir at ABC7. And what do I mean by that? Well, look, it involves a whole bunch of people, and people in the newsroom, people who report via whether an anchor, whether a reporter. It has caused quite a bit of anxiety, plain and simple. It's not the only reason why Dion Lim is all but gone from Channel 7 once her contract is settled or what have you. In fact, she's, as I've reported, she auditioned at CBS right up the street at KPIX Studios to be involved in the new CBS 24/7 news streaming platform. She wants out, and she will be gone pretty soon. And the debate, the conflict is real, folks. It's 100% real. I have really good sources on this. They've told me. And what is making it all uncomfortable is it involves, obviously, Asian relations, Black, African American relations, and it's not just at the station, it's individuals around the community. Okay. And there's been a lot of Black on Asian crime, not just in San Francisco, but in Oakland, Chinatown, for example. And Dion Lim has done a lot of that reporting, not on the anchor desk at KGO as much as her social media like X, formerly Twitter. And specifically, Julian Glover has been very, very adamant about that. And what's the wedge? Well, you know, this is the wedge. This is the conflict amongst the conflicts. Dion Lim was a favorite of the news director, you know, Miss Watkowski, known sarcastically as Trixie. Her real name is Tracy Watkowski. She is a Glover ally, formerly a Dion Lim ally, no longer. They work together still, so there's a professional relationship, no doubt. But here's another issue on that same front. That is Kirsten Z. Very, very vocal, very prominent, lots of influence there. She's been there over 20 years, so she should ostensibly have influence. She is very much against Dion Lim. There is a conflict. There is a perceived threat, at least Z feels that way, amongst Dion Lim and her allies. But remember this, folks. Remember this phrase: the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Well, Z happens to agree with much of Dion Lim's reporting. And she's not thrilled with that, but fact of the matter is the reporting has been quite vocal. And Z is also an ally and vice versa of the news director Watkowski. But as I indicated earlier, she does not like Dion Lim. She perceives her as a threat. Probably not so much now because Lim is on her way out the door and headed probably to CBS to be an anchor and a part of the CBS 24/7. Any day now, that's going to be announced, and she'll be gone from Channel 7. But let's talk about the conflict as it has affected the newsroom. There are people there are very vocal within the newsroom, within management, about the accurate reporting that Lim has produced. But on the other hand, this Glover guy, who I've been critical of because I've heard things that he's kind of a snitch, kind of an overloaded personality that has drawn a lot of favorites and non-favorites, has created a bunch of, shall we say, favorites and non-favorites. And if you're with me, that's cool. And if you're against me, that ain't cool, according to Glover. And that in and of itself has built up a major conflict at Channel 7. This has been the proverbial in the room. This issue is the reason why there is so much anxiety, this whole thing. Because look, let's face it, this is minority against other minority. This is a woman who happens to be Asian versus a guy who happens to be African American and maybe, has an enormous amount of influence inside the newsroom, not just at local ABC7, but also Disney. And, this is very, very, very stressful situation, folks. So that's the core. There are other issues too. There's ego. It's always ego, right? There's ego. There's favoritism. All this has created a wedge at Channel 7 amongst producers, newsroom staff, people who have been there for quite some time. And again, I want to make this very clear. There's a degree of, well, that person is right. That it's not really a right or wrong because what's taken place is out there. There has been a lot of crime committed against Asian Americans in San Francisco Chinatown. You've seen the videos, Oakland Chinatown, and the majority of the crimes that were committed were visible. All you have to do is go look on your social media accounts. And that pretty much explains the strain, the angst. And it happens to be amongst personalities and people who work within the framework, the apparatus at KGO, and will result in, most likely, the separation of one of their significant people, personalities who will leave this station. It's not just that, as I just indicated. There are other areas. This is the core issue. And believe me, when you have a news director who is as polarizing as Trixie Watkowski is, then you're really in a proverbial pickle. Who to choose from? There is no favorite. There are people rooting for other people to prevail. There are people who are not rooting. And again, this all creates a wedge, a mother of all wedges, where nobody's going to win. There's going to be a resolution eventually, and it's going to result in basically both parties losing out, because it's going to create further friction. It's going to create further, shall we say, disconnects. And I've been very vocal. Some of you have even noted, I've been very vocal about my disgust from an outsider's view of what's happening at Channel 7. It used to be one of the greatest stations in the Bay Area, right? A lot of history, legacy, et cetera, et cetera. So this issue is something that's very, very problematic. And particularly when it involves core people who are perceived as leaders, right? And this is where I'm going to point out, a good manager would try to take care of this issue and get to the bottom of it, get in front of it before it becomes a really, really major problem. And Trixie Watkowski has not gotten in front of this. Neither has the general manager, who has to know about this. If he doesn't, he will now. Tom Zabrowski, the vice president and general manager. They have not done anything, nothing at this, within their framework, where they have a voice, where they have a title, where they could ostensibly get both parties in a room with everyone else and get to the bottom of it and dissolve it, or at least try to control it. They've done neither. Instead, it's gotten a whole lot of traction. It's created, again, favorites and non-favorites, and then there are a lot of people who are looking over their shoulder and all that. And it is significant, folks. It creates a lot of distrust. And now look what we have. Well, we don't know fully, but at least you know all what this has done to the Circle 7, the Circle 7 presence over at 900 Front. Where does it go from here? I don't know. I do mention, and I have broadcast, that Dion Lim is all but gone from Channel 7. She wants out. She will get her exit and probably is headed across the street, literally up a hill, to the CBS, not Channel 5, mind you, but the CBS 24/7 that originates, ironically, from KPIX Studios, a mere block up the street from KGO. 900 Front to 855 Battery, that kind of a thing. It also creates a wall, a major wall at Channel 7. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people are upset. A lot of people have no desire to see this emanating. But folks, when you get egos involved, and when you have such a absolutely, talk about an issue, with race and gender and other things, crime. This is quite problematic. And I don't know how it's going to end, but it ain't going to be ending smoothly anytime soon. I am Rich Lieberman. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please become a member and get all the media information and opinions and scoops and exclusives that I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, you will not get anywhere else. And tell your friends, mention this, mention other things, and we will see you later. Thank you for watching.